Welcome back. Let's talk about the Pygmalion Effect. Of course, I want to tell you the story and explain where it comes from. The Pygmalion Effect is the idea that expectations shape the results. Now, I'm not talking about some kind of new age concept or idea. I'm just talking about a real way that our brain works. But it does come from a Greek myth that I thought you might find interesting. So let me tell you that story, and then we'll get into the 5 ways that you can kind of apply the lessons of the Pygmalion Effect to your own life here. So the Pygmalion Effect comes from the sculptor Pygmalion, who created this beautiful sculpture. And it was so beautiful, in fact, that he fell in love with it. And he began to treat it as if it were alive and as if it were real. And the goddess Aphrodite was so enamored by this that she allowed the sculpture to come to life so that Pygmalion could have a real relationship with a real woman. And, and so that's the story. That's where it comes from. Now, I'm not suggesting some kind of, magical outcome or anything like that. And that's not really the point. The point is researchers have done this work. There's classic research study. There's one by Rosenthal that shows that expectations absolutely do influence performance. Again, I'm not talking about this in some esoteric way or big magical way or anything like that, but the reality is your expectations can have an influence on your performance. Now, this does not mean that if you see yourself as an NBA basketball player, all of a sudden you'll be able to go up and dunk a basketball. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about it on a certain level that your expectations absolutely show up in how well you perform or how you don't perform. And so how do we deal with that reality? If our expectations actually have a contribute to how well we perform in a different situation, where we solve a problem well or not, whether we discover something we're trying to discover, whether we come up with that creation that we've been trying to, or we're successful in whatever endeavor we're proposing. Expectations play a role. So what are the lessons that we can take from the reality that this is how our brains are designed? I have 5 for you, as I usually do. First one I jotted down here is to set higher bars. So expect more of yourself than you feel comfortable. So if you have low expectations, you'll probably meet those low expectations or maybe come right below them. If you raise the expectations on yourself, not in a way that makes it overly painful or leads you to some place of great depression or anxiety or despair or anything like that. I'm not talking about something unrealistic here, but you raise the bar for yourself. You stretch yourself beyond your current capacity. You set your expectation to be better than you are now, maybe even a little better than you think you can be. Now, I've had conversations with people, and people disagree with me on this, but I actually like to set my expectations incredibly high, not for other people. I don't do this to other people in this same level, but for myself, I set my expectations probably 10 times higher than I may be capable of actually meeting in a reasonable time frame or something like that. And for me, I use the phrase, shoot for the stars, and if you end up in the clouds, well, that's not a bad place to be. Now, that is not the best practice, though. When you actually look at the research, researchers would say you want to set expectations that are challenging for you but not impossible, ones that you can reach with effort. And the reality is that even if you don't reach that total expectation, you're going to get to a level higher than if you had just started with lower expectations. Make sense? Second one, then, is to, and I'm not a big fan of this word because it can be misused in other ways, but some people talk about this as visualizing success. I would say instead just mentally rehearse what you want to accomplish. So you can practice things in person, and you can also practice them in your mind. And we all do this. Musicians do this all the time. When I'm not an incredible guitarist, but I love to play guitar. And sometimes I play guitar when I'm traveling and I'm sitting in the plane. I don't have my guitar with me, but I'm rehearsing and I'm playing it in my head. And I'm hearing the music and I'm feeling the frets and the strings, and I'm not necessarily moving my hands, but I'm kind of going through and I'm imagining the scenario or the situation. Well, if and I'm picturing myself playing it well when I do this. I'm not just sitting there imagining myself stumbling my way through the song. No, I'm trying to practice it in my mind in a way that allows me to be more successful. Again, I'm not turning this into like some kind of new age concept or anything like that. I'm talking about this in a really earthy, down to earth, plain speaking kind of way that, yeah, preparing mentally for something is good. You see this with athletes all the time. They're getting ready to, maybe it's like a gymnast or something. They close their eyes, they picture it, they go through it, and then they try to act out what they just saw in their head. That sort of model or that exemplar that they just went through in their head. It works. It's very helpful to mentally rehearse. You can practice things in your mind. We've been designed in a way that's a gift that we all have. We have the ability to do that. The third one is to use a bit of a growth mindset. And there are a lot of books, Carol Dweck's book on growth mindset is very popular. Angela Duckworth's work on grit and so forth. But this precedes both of those people and all of the contemporary literature, is just being a little bit more hopeful with yourself and actually use the language that's hopeful. So, for example, and I do this actually with my team when I'm working. If I'm talking to someone, say the person who's in charge of finance at my organization, and I talk about something and they say, well, we can't afford that. I like to rephrase it and say, okay, thank you. That is very important information. We need to be good stewards of our resources. We need to live and operate within our means. But I like to rephrase the statement a little bit, if you're okay with that, to we can't afford it yet. So that might be like a little shift, but that kind of language helps you recognize that there is the possibility of achieving it in the future. Don't close the door to exceeding your current performance. You may say, I can't be a world-renowned musician. And maybe you never can, given the amount of days that you have left and your natural ability and everything like that. But maybe it's more like, I can't play this song. Instead of saying, I could never play that song, to say, well, I can't play it in my current level, or I can't play it yet. Just acknowledge that this is where you are right now, but you have the capacity to get better and get closer to achieving it, even if not maybe achieving it, if not getting close to it. All right, let's talk about the fourth one then, is to track progress. We do know that tracking your progress and seeing progress over time helps us. It's a great motivating technique. So you want to document your effort to reinforce and see that you are getting better, you're making progress. Maybe it's really small progress, but it helps. I ran marathons for a number of years and very slowly, but I ran them and I enjoyed some of these kinds of competitive races. I did one of those Ragnars, which is a team, very extended, triple-digit mile shared race. And whenever I was training, I always kept a record of my time and my distance. And you can see, and I could look back, and I remember the year when I went to run a mile, and it was so painful. I didn't think that I was going to make it through. I had to stop and walk 3 times in the first mile. And then I can track this, and I see myself get all the way to the place where now I'm doing 3 miles, and then 5 miles, and then 7, then 10, then 13, then 15, then 19, then 21, then 26.2. And you track this and you will build a little bit of confidence. You will remind yourself that you can get better over time. That's what tracking does. It gives you that little reminder that, with practice, with time, with persistence, I can get better. A little bit better at a time. So you're really focusing upon your relative progress when you do that. And then the fifth one is try to be around and find some other people who are hopeful and positive people. And positivity can spread. And negativity can spread too. It doesn't mean that you abandon your friends who sometimes tend to be a little bit more pessimistic and the like, but it's good to have some other people around you who can speak encouraging and positively about you, and you can speak positively encouraging about them. That, hey, you can do this. And I have confidence in your ability to get better at this. And you don't have to lie to one another or be unrealistic in your positivity, but being positive, being hopeful can be very motivating, and it helps. And so I offer you these 5 tips if you would like to sort of capitalize on the Pygmalion effect. Maybe your sculpture is not going to turn into the love of your life, but these practices can certainly allow you to make use of the fact, the reality that your expectations certainly do have an impact on the results. As always, I hope you find this useful, and I look forward to your comments.